But one of the biggest things that developers themselves can do is create something that's a little bit unique in the marketplace, create something that reduces that sameness. If you create something that's unique, different, then you're not suffering the same levels of comparative problems that you have with properties that are all the same.
You are listening to the Property Developer Podcast, your home for tips, ideas and inspiration to help take your developing to the next level. Now here's your host, Justin Getty.
Hello and welcome to episode 24 of the Property Developer Podcast. Thanks for tuning in. I trust you are well. I've got a wonderful show for you featuring real estate agent David Stewart. We have a great chat about selling off the plan, marketing projects and staying ahead of the competition. Before we get to that, here's a quick update on what I've been up to. My 20 townhouse project is bubbling along nicely. The back townhouses have had all the exteriors completed and they look great. The scaffolding is all down and work is underway inside, where most of the kitchen cabinetry has been installed and now the flooring is going in. I'm really happy with how they are looking and the colour schemes seem to be working very nicely. Along the front row, they are installing the external cladding with some of it finished, so some scaffolding is coming down. We're having to sort out an issue with mould growing in a large void beneath the kitchen area. There is insufficient airflow which is making it damp in that area, so we are having to create some cross ventilation by cutting a large hole in the back wall of the garage. It will be hidden behind the stairwell stud wall, and placing grated vents along the front of the townhouses to get air moving around. It's annoying, but one of those issues that pops up and just has to be solved. I recently produced a short video of how the site is looking, so if you want to see how it is progressing, check out the show notes for this episode and you will find it there. The second site is also close to having the town planning application finalised. We have our proposed scheme ready with elevations and landscape plan, and we've also had a tree report done. So it is all with our private town planner who is preparing his supporting report. We should have it all ready to go in a week or so, and then we will find out how council feels about what we would like to do. We have planning policy support for our proposal, so we will be looking for council to get on board too, but you just never know. I've also been working on an investment proposal for prospective investors to get involved in our project. It's been really interesting working on an investment proposal like this because I haven't done one quite like it before, and it's been really good for giving me insight into different ways of structuring a deal and the kind of returns that investors can potentially get. Apart from that, I've been playing around with a new website that helps developers find development sites. It's been set up by a friend of mine and it's quite nifty. The website specifically caters to property developers by only listing properties that have approved plans and permits or those that have development potential. They also aggregate a lot of cool due diligence information to the listing from some of the main data providers to help you save time in doing a high-level feasibility assessment. Things like relevant overlays and relevant tribunal cases for nearby properties are accessible from the site. The site is called www.yourpropertyproject.com.au. So take a look if you are on the hunt for a site and you might just find the one you are looking for. Okay, on to today's guest, David Stewart from MarketShare Property, a real estate agent who has helped us sell some of the townhouses in our current project. David has had a long career in the property industry and a successful track record of selling off the plan. He is also someone who likes to try new things and just received some industry awards and recognition for innovation and marketing. In this conversation, we talk about the keys to success when selling off the plan, where you get the biggest bang for your marketing buck, and how you can stay ahead of the competition. Of course, I started off by asking David what food he could eat until he was sick, and he surprised me with his answer.
It's interesting, I could eat soup till I was sick. I'm a big fan of soup.
Soup?
Yeah, I like to make my own soup and make all sorts of different types of soup, so yeah, it's one of my favourites.
And what particular type of soup would be your favourite soup?
Experimenting with chilies and curries at the moment, which is not hugely popular with my family, but you can get some interesting flavour combinations, so it keeps me amused. My brother's a chef, and my dad's a really good cook, so cooking's in the family. I'm nowhere near their level of expertise in cooking, but I like to have a play.
I love home cooked soup as well.
Yeah.
Winter, we're in Melbourne and
Oh, it's great. You can store it, you can freeze it, you can come back to it. I often find a couple of days later it tastes better than the day you've cooked it. But it's just, yeah, and there's no end of combinations.
Yeah, my favourites are pea and ham soup, homemade, and then
Yep.
leek and potato.
Okay, I made a really good Moroccan lamb soup the other day, but it was a little bit spicy for the family, so I've still got like a big ton of it in the fridge waiting for me to get back to it.
So is that deliberate? So only you get to eat the soup?
No. I've cooked all sorts of vegetable soups that the kids really liked and the wife really liked. It's just I'm on a bit of a spice bent at the moment and just playing around with that. But yeah, my family has not a spicy palate, so they're not keen on my latest experiments. Although I think they're all right.
Well, David, we're here today to talk about selling. So you're an agent based in the outer eastern part of Melbourne. So we're, about 39 k's out here?
33
33.
kilometres from the Melbourne post office.
So you're the director of market share property.
I am.
And you helped us sell a couple of our townhouses on our current development.
Yes.
Which has been great working with you and the team. Can you tell us a little bit about your background, how you came to own market share? I know you've had owned other agencies or been heavily involved in other agencies over the years, so just give us a bit of a background on yourself.
Yeah, I left school and went to university and found that my higher education was probably not. I wasn't as good a student as I would have liked to have been. So I left university at 23 and ended up becoming a real estate agent. And I fell into the job. I didn't mean to become a real estate agent. It was an ad in the paper at the time. It was pre-internet days. That's how old I am, Justin. And I fell into a job and I started working for Stockdale and Lego. And after a year there, I ended up working at Barry Plant in Croydon. After a couple of years there, I ended up as a sales manager. Another year after that, I ended up as a partner. From there, I spent 4 years as a partner. From there, I then bought the Ringwood and Ringwood North offices of Barry Plant. Just spent a long time as a franchisee of a large couple of offices. As we saw significant changes in the real estate market and significant changes in the way people were interacting, particularly online, we found that the franchise model really wasn't flexible enough. We found that the challenges that were being presented on a day-to-day basis just weren't being addressed by head office, and the nature of having a 90 office network meant that they were just unable to be nimble enough to move with the times. So we made a decision at the time to sell out of the franchise and open up an independent office. So I then moved from Barry Plant to a company called Stewart Real Estate. Now I opened that and ran that for a couple of years. The issue that I had is I probably hadn't made a big enough leap from the franchise model. I really took what I knew as a franchised agent and just replicated it as an independent. Colours and all were, navy blue and red, and the way we ran the office was very, very similar to my experiences as running a franchised office. And after a couple of years, although we're playing around with online marketing, after a couple of years, it really wasn't what I wanted out of a real estate office. Because we'd experimented a fair bit with online marketing and Facebook marketing, we were approached by a large agency in Ringwood who wanted some of our secrets of what we did, and they wanted us to conduct some training for them in regards to online marketing. We told them if they wanted our expertise, they had to buy our systems office, so they made us an offer for the office and we sold it. Part of that process was I had to stay out of real estate for 12 months. So I then took their money and spent 12 months travelling through the States and spending some time with the kids, and spent a lot of time in LA and a lot of time in New York, listening to people who had a lot of expertise in online marketing. Generating traffic, where traffic comes from, consumer habits online, where they spent their money, how they spent their time. We then took that, came back to Australia and opened up Market Share Property just on 2 years ago. 2 years ago, 3rd of October 2014, so we've just celebrated our second birthday, and it's been very successful. We took everything we knew about real estate and threw it out the window and started from a very, very much a baseline. And what we wanted to do was create a really high level of internet marketing. That's how Market Share was born.
And that's quite timely because only in the last couple of days you've actually picked up some industry awards for the innovation that you've introduced here.
Yeah, we were named as a top 3 finalist through realestate.com for Game Changer of the Year, and that was for online offer management platform that allows people to make offers online to compete in an open and transparent manner. We're also named as a state winner through the REIV for corporate promotion, and that was just how we go about promoting the office and promoting our services. One of the big differences between us and other agents is we don't use our clients' money to promote ourselves. We use innovative, online, Facebook-based, Twitter-based, all sorts of different mediums to get our message out there. We do it in a very cost-effective fashion.
Yes, well, that's always been a bit of a talking point with me and other people about how customers of real estate agents really do subsidise a multi-million-dollar advertising campaign for a lot of these big brands.
And I found it really, really interesting in my time in the States. I spent some time with a lot of really good agents, and the model over there is the agents pay for the marketing, and the marketing comes off the commission. So individual clients or homeowners don't contribute 1 cent to the marketing. So because it's coming out of the agent's pocket, it's amazing how aggressive they become in just ensuring that marketing is only geared at generating buyer inquiry. They don't want to spend money if they don't need to spend money. So their marketing is really on point, and it's really laser focused on just generating buyer inquiry. And a lot of the excess that we're used to in Australia is just cut out of it. And that was a really eye-opening experience for me. And, you know, I look at real estate in Australia, and we're one of the only industries in existence that allows that we get to spend vast amounts of our clients' money for pure self-promotion. And our clients just cop it. And it amazes me that, you know, we can take something like a local paper, for example, and a local paper can make up anywhere up to 40% of someone's total marketing budget, and an agent will spend that 40%, which can equate to $2,000 or $3,000, knowing full well that on statistics generated by the local papers themselves, that less than 2% of your inquiries come from the local paper. So you're spending 40% of your budget to generate 2% of your inquiries, and it just doesn't make sense. Like, there's no realistic business model where that makes sense. The only way it makes sense is because the agents get to brand themselves and promote themselves. So they push this concept of continuing to spend money in the local paper so that they've got brand awareness amongst people out there in the local community. And I just don't think it's fair. I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's reasonable. And I don't think long term the real estate industry can continue to just willfully spend people's money with no return.
So let's talk about marketing for off-the-plan properties then. That leads in nicely to that.
Yep.
In your experience, where do you think the biggest bang for your buck is that developers would get marketing their off-the-plan projects?
Well, it's all online based these days. Clearly, realestate.com and Domain are the two major portals in Victoria. So obviously there needs to be a listing on there. Facebook has been fantastic for marketing online properties. As you know, we set up a Facebook page for yours. Then I think you're still using it. Still using it quite well. And of all the developers, I must say, of all the developers that we've run this system with, you have taken that on board most wholeheartedly, and I think it's paid huge dividends even after all the sales have been completed, for people to be able to see what's going on, to be kept up to date, to have some sort of ownership in their purchase. So, you know, really using those online mediums to specifically target the buyers that you're looking for and the demographics that you're looking for is the way to go. And you can be done relatively cheaply. You know, the days of spending $3,000 or $4,000 online, you know, I mean, they're for the people who don't really know how to target their marketing. Once you learn how to target it, once you learn how to specifically advertise to a certain demographic, you know, you can get away with your major portals for less than $1,000, and for another $1,000 over the course of 2 or 3 months, you can really effectively target, as I say, specific demographics, age groups, locations.
Apart from Facebook, is there anything else?
Look, Facebook is the main one at the moment. I'm sure there'll be more that come around. I have played around extensively with Twitter advertising. Twitter advertising is great from a corporate point of view. It doesn't do a lot for individual properties. You know, there are single property websites. We've played around with those. They generate a little bit of traffic, but once again, bang for your buck, they're not a huge contributor to online inquiry. So you take away the major portals, which obviously are a necessity, because obviously anyone looking looking to buy real estate will go to either realestate.com or Domain as the main two. Facebook is the one that, as far as genuine return on investment, is certainly the most powerful one currently. But like anything, that's open to change over the next couple of years.
Yeah, and I think the power with Facebook is really in the ability to specifically target a geographic area.
Yeah.
So
right.
5 kilometres around wherever your particular project is. And I think if you're using video, you can get really good returns in terms of the investment and the cost per view. I know when we were doing it was something like 5 or 10 cents per view, and we were picking up hundreds of views. So
That's right.
I think video is the way to go if you can find someone to help you to produce them. If you don't know how to do it, I'm fortunate I've got the skills to be able to shoot and edit and cut something together, but there's lots of sites that you can get help with producing videos through Upwork.com or other online platforms.
You can, and you can even do video carousels within the Facebook marketing itself. Now they're fairly rudimentary, but you can put music to them, you can put up to 10 images, and you can just have a carousel. And as a really basic video, it's a lot more interactive than a static shot. So even as a bare minimum, something like that is really accessible to anyone, and it can take 5 minutes to put together. So something like that, is inbuilt within the Facebook environment and readily available to anyone. So videos are a massive engagement improvement over static photos.
Yeah, look, I think in this day and age, you really have to incorporate video, some kind of video to show your project and the properties that you're looking to sell. I reckon it's an absolute must-have these days.
I agree. And with the speed of 4G these days, most people scrolling through their Facebook feeds in particular on their phones or their iPads. Let's face it, most people are looking at this stuff on mobile devices as opposed to desktops. Most of them have autoplay, so as soon as it scrolls up on their news feed, it'll start playing. And if they've got some slight interest in it, they'll stop and watch it. I know myself, when I'm scrolling through a news feed, if a video within the first 2 or 3 seconds looks like something that I might be interested in, I'll stop and watch it. And as long as it's not too long, you want to keep your videos relatively bite-sized so they're readily consumed. But yeah, no, they're a fantastic tool for just engaging people and getting them to look further and getting that additional level of interest.
Actually, I think the latest iPhone operating system might have a built-in video producing app or capability that you can just stick photos in and it'll create a little short video.
It does.
And then in terms of printed marketing material or support material for the agents, for when prospective buyers come in, what do you like to see? What's the minimum that you'd like to have, and then what are some of the sort of additional extras that add value and help you out?
Yeah, look, really good things to have. Obviously, brochures. Brochures are great. I mean, it's old school, but they still work very, very well because you're giving them something physical to walk out of the office with or walk away from the site with. They can then take it home. Oftentimes it lands on a kitchen bench and they come back to it, they scribble on it, they draw on it, they write on it. As long as it's got a floor plan, because floor plans are very important. People need to visualise where their furniture is going to be. As far as any other additional materials, it's really good to have a clear set of inclusions plus upgrades, so people can see what they're getting for their money. Buying off the plan is very, very different from buying an established property. When you're buying established, you walk through, you see what you're getting. When you're buying off the plan, there's so much more that's left to the imagination. So, you have to be a lot more clearer in what you're providing and illustrating that to your purchasers. As far as extra stuff that's really good are, really high quality internal artist impressions. Now we're seeing a lot more of those these days. A couple of years ago or 3 years ago, they were prohibitively expensive, but with the increases in, the availability for software to produce that type of stuff, it really allows people once again to really visualize what they're buying and what they're getting for their money. And the more we can paint the picture for people, the better we are, or the more successful we are in creating that emotional attachment, because we're selling something that's intangible at this stage, being off the plan.
Share a little bit with us about your experience selling off the plan and how that differs from existing property. I mean, apart from the obvious, when you're taking buyers through a sales process, what's the key difference that you've found?
Yeah, selling established is well, it's relatively easy. Selling established, people create their own attachments to the property. They get emotionally involved in it. They picture themselves living there. There's generally only one available, so it's a lot easier to create that fear of loss and that sense of competition. Selling off the plan, in most cases, there's more than one property available that are quite similar, whether it be similar in price point, similar in floor space, similar in bedroom layouts, all of that type of stuff. So you have to create a narrative around the property. You have to, really, I guess, create a picture in people's minds of what it'll be like to live there. So you have to be a lot more creative in the way you speak to people. Whereas with an established, you can say to someone, look, you need to put an offer in today or else someone else is going to, or we've got other interest in the property and you're going to miss out. You lose a lot of that ability to create that sense of loss or fear of loss, because if they miss this one, they'll just buy the one next door or the one around the corner from it. So you have to either limit the amount of properties you put on the market. So if you've got a site of 10 off the plan units, it doesn't do the project any good to put all 10 on. If you've got 3 different floor plans, then put one of each floor plan, so you can have a little bit more success in creating that fear of loss or that sense of urgency. If you've only got 2 variations in floor plans, then just put the 2 on, and as they sell, you then replace them. And I think that's one of the biggest mistakes a lot of agents make, is they'll take 20 properties and put all 20 on, and you've cut yourself off at the knees from the outset, because how do you create that sense of fear of loss or that sense of urgency amongst your purchasers if they've got all these choices to choose from? So limiting the amount that you put on the market at any one time is generally a very good way to go.
And something else I've seen on quite a lot of listings from agents doing projects is that they'll combine the online listing. Yep. So they'll say there's 5 units or 6 units, and they'll list some of the details for each unit in bullet points. Unit 1, 2 bedroom, 1 bathroom. Unit 2, 3 bedroom, 1 bathroom. I think that's lazy.
It's lazy, and it's not intentionally lazy. It's just a lack of experience in selling these type of properties. I think a lot of agents spend 90% of their time or 95% of their time selling established properties. And there's been with some rare exceptions, there have been some exceptions to the rule, but with rare exceptions, there's been very few people that have specialised in off-the-plan stuff. So they approach off-the-plan exactly the same way as they approach established. And they're 2 very, very different types of markets. They're 2 very different types of selling. It's a longer term process to sell off the plan. If you're selling a project of 4, it can take you 4 or 5 months to sell it. If you're selling a project of bigger than that, it can certainly take you longer to sell it. So you need to be prepared to play a longer game than what you do with an established property. One of the things of putting everything on one listing is it very, very quickly gets stale. So it drops down the list, people see it and have disregarded it, or they've already looked at it, or when they're doing their searches, it'll say they've already visited this site 3 times, and so therefore in their own mind there's no point going back. But by replacing listings as they sell, you're always putting stuff back to the top. You're always showing it up as a new listing. You're generating more buyer inquiry, particularly people that are looking and change their search criteria for newest to oldest, and as far as listings and time on market. So as far as that type of stuff, you're keeping it fresh, you're keeping it in people's inboxes, you're keeping it on top of people's search results. So you've got to plan to continually reinvigorating the property as it goes along, so it's always showing up as a potentially a new listing.
And what are the sort of common objections that you have to overcome with buyers?
Just over the last couple of years, one of the biggest objections has been that there's been so much development in the area. So, sales of off the plan is very similar to sales of anything else in the respect that it's a supply and demand issue. The greater the level of supply, the harder it is to create the demand for it. And because there's been such a huge amount of development through the outer eastern suburbs over particularly the last 5 years, and it shows no sign of abating, it's very, very hard to differentiate types of properties. So one of the biggest challenges one of the biggest objections we get from purchasers is, well, I understand this one's available and it's not going to be built, it's not going to be finished in June next year. So once again, there's no urgency because they've got a whole heap of time before it's due to be built. And there's another 4 or 5 projects around the corner that offer similar types of fit outs, similar types of finishes, similar types of accommodation. And that's probably the most difficult aspect of off the plan sales.
And so how do you address that?
There's not a lot we can do to address it. We can certainly create points of difference as far as additional marketing funnels for buyer inquiry. But one of the biggest things that developers themselves can do is create something that's a little bit unique in the marketplace. Create something that reduces that sameness. If you create something that's unique, different, then you're not suffering the same levels of comparative problems that you have with properties that are all the same. So, having a bit of a think about what you build and what you design, and making sure that the market's not already flooded with that type of product, goes a long way to ensuring that they sell quickly.
And what about copy, the words that are used to promote the project or the property listing? What's your view on that? Because most agents tend to have a fairly a functional approach, I guess. They just keep the copy to a minimum and tend to have a lot of bullet points just outlining some of the functions or the details of the property.
Yeah, real estate copy is one of my big bugbears. Real estate copy, and I'm in the industry, I'll get through the first 2 sentences of most real estate copy and then just stop reading it because it's just annoys me because it's so similar. Once again, it's about creating a narrative around the property. You don't want to list the points of what the property has. Touch on it, but don't focus on it. You want to create a perception of what it's like to live there. You want to create a story about why your proposed demographic or your purchaser, your targeted purchaser would want to buy in that location, whether it be, and I think with yours, we used inner city, a real inner city feel in the outer eastern suburbs. So you want to create a story around what the property offers them from a lifestyle point of view and not just tick off features. And it goes back to the really age-old marketing adage of sell the sizzle, not the sausage. You don't want to just hit points after points of what the property has because they're really, really forgettable. And for most people, they read it, but they don't take it in. But if you can create a story about why someone wants to live there and why it will benefit them to purchase this particular property over and above everything else that's available, you'll have a lot more chance of creating that engagement. So, I think agents need to become storytellers a little bit more in their advertising copy rather than just listing features.
Yeah, and I think developers need to be a bit more demanding as well from their agents that's what they want.
Look, the way real estate's going at the moment, and we discussed this briefly beforehand, but the way real estate's going at the moment, quite frankly, the way most agents are conducting their real estate businesses, most people are better off just selling themselves. They really are. There's not a lot of expertise in copywriting. There's not a lot of expertise in marketing and marketing or current marketing trends. In the real estate industry, there's a lot of follow the leader. Everyone else has done it this way. This is the way we're going to do it. It's not broken. Why fix it? This is the way we've always done it. So, it becomes stale really, really quickly. And I think in a really congested marketplace, like real estate always has been, there's never been no properties on the market. There's always something to sell. So from that point of view, agents have to become a lot better at marketing and have to become a lot better at providing that value back to their clients and being able to demonstrate if you're going to pay a certain percentage per sale, and particularly when you're dealing with off the plan, you're starting to talk about quite a large amount of money. If you're talking multiple sales, there has to be significant value, and there has to be an ability for the agent to demonstrate that value back to their clients.
What's your view on for sale boards out the front of development sites? Are they necessary? Should they be bigger the better? What should go on them?
That's actually one that I'm still formulating an opinion on. We've tried smaller boards, we've tried bigger boards. Statistically, all right, let's just go from a pure buyer inquiry generation point of view or a lead generation point of view. They don't make a lot of difference. They really don't. I'm having an internal debate at the moment with the vast amount of people online at the moment whether boards are actually necessary at all. I'm still erring on the side of conservative as far as boards go, and we're still putting boards up. As far as information goes, people drive past boards, pictures, very, very little wording if you're going to. If you're on a main road and people are, and it comes down to relative traffic speed. If you're on a main road, the bigger the board, the better, simply because people are flashing past it quite quickly, because obviously the speed limits on main roads are a lot higher. If you're on a smaller residential street and people are travelling more slowly, then you don't need as big a board. But it's all about visualisation and the ability for people to be able to take in the information while they're travelling. Very, very few people, despite what agents might tell people, very, very few people actually stop and look at a board, because if people are going somewhere, they're going somewhere for a reason. So they'll very, very rarely take the time out to actually pull over. More often than not, they'll see the board, they'll see who's selling it, they'll go back somewhere and Google it, or if they've got a passenger in the car, they'll look it up on their phone and make a phone call from there. So contact company is, you don't need big logos, but you certainly need to know who they've got to contact. And photos, more photos the better, and just a few dot points, because realistically anything you've got written on a board for the most part is rarely read.
And with buyer inquiry and reporting back to developers, or should the developer be interested in statistics around buyer inquiry? Like, is that important in terms of how many phone calls you've had or meetings you've had?
I think it's important that you know that you're getting consistent buyer inquiry, because it's like anything, if the tap turns off, then there's no sales that are going to happen. Like, there needs to be consistent buyer inquiry, and you need to look for patterns. So if you're getting a whole heap of people coming through saying that it doesn't represent good value for money in comparison to what else is on the market, then you absolutely need to listen to that. But that has to be a consistent message over a large number of buyers for it to be statistically important or relevant. So that stuff you need to know. Hit rates, waste of time. One of the things that's really been frustrating for me over the past few years is agents like to quote views and particularly on realestate.com. What they fail to understand is realestate.com didn't get to be a $6 billion company because they're morons. They structure a lot of that statistics to make it look a lot more favourable than what it is. Any search result, anytime it shows up in any search result, is classed as a view. It doesn't necessarily mean people have clicked through to it. It doesn't necessarily mean that people have taken any interest in it. Half the time it's agents and people just doing research on the market, and whether they click through or not, if it shows up in a search result, it's classed as a view, and that's really, really misleading. So you can have something that says it's got 12,000 views on it, but realistically, how many people have clicked through? So, as far as that type of stuff, there needs to be a greater understanding of what you need to know, and what a developer or any client of real estate or any vendor of real estate needs to know is how many people have actually clicked through to the site, how many people have looked at floor plans, how many people have clicked on the agent reveal, which shows phone numbers and email addresses, because that's an indication of how many people have decided to either email you or pick up the phone. So a really loose idea of what the click-throughs are like, and what the interaction and the engagement is really important. But you'll notice when you go to a real estate listing, and all clients can do it, you can look up in the top right-hand corner and it's got the views there. Completely disregard that. It is just a meaningless statistic and has no value in being reported back to a client or a buyer or anyone. It's about as useless as it gets as far as knowing how popular a property is.
So the incoming phone calls are probably one of the key indicators.
Yeah, we've seen a massive drop-off in phone calls in the last 18 months. Massive drop-off in phone calls. More and more and more people now have access to emails on their phones. It used to be only people in business got their emails on their phones, but more and more people now can have access to it. And it's with the smartphones, whether it's Samsungs or iPhones or whatever. It's really, really easy to set up an email on a phone these days. So more people, and the other thing that we've got to be aware of is people don't want to talk to agents. We like to think that we're this be-all and end-all of, customer service at the end of the day. People hate us. I think it's time the real estate industry really took that on board and understood it, because you can only market around truth, and you can only market around what your reality is. And the reality of our market is buyers and vendors hate us. That's just the nature of being a real estate agent. So people don't want to talk to us if they don't have to. So so much more of our inquiries are email based these days, where people just jump on realestate.com or domain, they'll hit the email agent button and they'll flick off an email from there. And from there, if you're lucky, they've got a phone number. You never return an email with an email if there's a phone number there. Always ring the client back. You're always better off to speak to them. If there's no phone number, then you're not left a lot of choice. You just have to email, and really from that point, you're crossing your fingers and hope they respond to you.
So then, with the email, have you got any tips, or how would you go about making or crafting an effective email response back to people?
Yeah, short and sharp, and you want to leave questions. You want to give them some reason for them to make contact and call you. If they're asking for a specific price or what, what's included, it's always an idea to say that we have comprehensive information that's available, but you'll need to contact us so we can afford it to you. But you want to, depending on what the inquiry is. The other thing with a lot of the major portals, they now have tick boxes on email inquiries. So rather than the buyer actually writing what they want, there's just a tick box, price indication, copy of the contract, something like that. So if they're not actually putting in a direct message, whatever their requirements are, whatever they've asked for, you're probably better off to send a message back saying you need to contact us to get this information, because there's a lot more involved than just shooting stuff out to you. But really try and get that contact and that discussion with the buyer, because they might flick off 10 emails and get 10 emails back and only read one of them. So you need to just speak to those people so that you can ascertain just how interested they are, what they're looking for, whether they're actually a legitimate lead. The other reality with most real estate leads is 8 out of 10 real estate leads are useless. They don't go anywhere. They're people just having a bit of a look around or checking the market or doing their own research. So
I reckon in this day and age, a new tactic that you could try with your email response is actually a short video message outlining some of the project or some of the features, the benefits of it. Just very short and sharp, and flick that back to the owner.
It's
and
interesting.
At the end, saying, "Give us a call. We can tell you a little bit more about it." Just again, standing out and something a bit different.
It's interesting. We've just started doing that with established property. We've got an established property. We've got a guy who is a professional renovator. So he goes in, he sells probably 2 or 3 properties a year, but he buys rundown properties, then just completely renovates them. We structured a really short slideshow video. We did that in-house, just put some really bad jazz music to it. It wasn't great music, but we just put some music to it, and we uploaded that to YouTube. So we've got that, and we've just had a link to that. We've only started doing that in the last week, so it's interesting you mentioned that. We've just started that. That's more than an established property, but I think you're right. I think you've got something that people can click through to. We run Infusionsoft on our database and our email provider, which is a really good software that allows us to see whether people open it, not only whether they open the email, but whether they click through to the attachment. And we're running, we only started doing that last week, about Tuesday last week, but I think we're running at about a 40% click through to the video.
Yeah, well, I think video and audio messages back via email, it could be quite effective.
Yeah, that's right. No, I agree. But having said that, as I said, we're still very, very early in that process. But yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I just don't have enough previous examples to really break down just how effective it is, but we'll build that over the next couple of months, and we'll get a much clearer idea of just how effective that is from a marketing point of view.
So how would a developer go about selecting an agent to sell their off-the-plan projects?
Yeah, selecting an agent is difficult because it's really hard to cut through the hype and get to the real issues. Most people look at it and say, well, it's a cost versus benefit analysis, and if all the agents aren't really demonstrating individual benefit and they're all pretty much the same, then it really just comes down to cost. My view on it is cost is should be a direct correlation of the value that you receive. So, I'd be going back, and specifically I'd be looking at the agent that can provide some sort of marketing solutions. What you want to know is how many buyers are out there, how you're going to get those buyers, what sort of funnels you're going to use to bring those buyers to the door, how you're going to create a point of difference. If we're talking about off-the-plan properties and we know that there's a lot of development in the particular area that you're building and there's a lot of choice, well, you really have to work hard to differentiate your product from what else is on the market. And you need someone who can articulate that and could provide you with a clear plan as to how your property is going to stand, or how your properties, I should say, are going to stand out amongst the crowd. And if they can't articulate it, and if they can't give you a concrete plan in how they're going to do it, then it's time to look at another agent.
Okay. And then tell us, when you're going through that sales process and you've got buyer inquiry or you've got people that you're talking to, what can the developer do during that process to help you along, or to help you get that sale locked in? What do you look for in the developer?
Updates are great, continuing updates of what's going on so that we can keep people up to date. If sales are slow in the outset, and often the first few are the most difficult to get away, little add-ons, whether it be free ducted heating unit or a free alarm system, just little things to get the first ones across the line. But more so than anything, I think the most important thing in working with the developer is it becomes a very, very clear, very straightforward, very honest communication. For too long, agents have been scared to tell people the truth, and they just like to tell people what they want to hear. But I think if you approach any sort of off-the-plan sale as very much a team-orientated exercise, where you can't be, you look at it and say, well, your developer's your partner in this. While they're the ones that have put the time and the risk and the effort into it, you can't look at it as a client-customer relationship, if you like, a client-agent relationship. You've got to look at it and say, well, they've entrusted these sales to us, so we become a partner in their success to making sure that they get the results that they need to. And in order to do that effectively, you've got to have very open lines of communication. You've got to have very honest lines of communication. If there's an issue, then it needs to be raised. And if there's a problem on price, well, it needs to be raised. And it needs to be raised without fear that you're going to just say the wrong thing. And you need to establish that rapport and that mutual respect right off the bat. And that has to be one of the very, very first things that's created. So having those open lines of communication, being able to discuss issues around the project very clearly and openly and transparently with your clients goes a long way to making sure that the project gets sold out quickly.
Yeah, well, I think one of the biggest things developers can do in terms of helping the agent is be available. So when you ring, or if you ring, you're there at the other end of the phone to answer the questions that will come up. Because I think if you can answer those questions for the buyers might have quickly, then it gives you as an agent a better chance at closing the sale there and then, or getting a commitment there and then.
Oh, couldn't agree more. Absolutely. We'll often get someone that says, can we change this? Can we put this in? We had one the other day on one of our other projects where we didn't have the costing for ducted evaporative cooling, and a buyer wanted to know what the ducted evaporative cooling was going to cost. Now, we were able to secure those answers within an hour and then go back to the buyer. Looks like we should sell that property sometime tomorrow or Wednesday, depending on buyer availability. But, being able to, as you say, being able to respond to those requests really, really quickly for a buyer helps us keep them in the loop, keep them engaged in the sale, keep the discussions going. Availability from you to your agent from a developer's point of view is paramount. It's absolutely critical.
And what about reputation of the developer? Does that play any role in the buyer's decision, or is that more to do with an agent having the confidence in the developer and then being able to promote that to the buyer when they come in?
It is a really common question. One of the things that we're always asked is, have these people built before? I think there's a lot of mistrust in the building industry. We hear too many stories on a current affair, and there's not enough about agents, but there's certainly a lot about builders, about building projects that don't go ahead, about stuff that's built badly and people lose their money. Now, while this predominantly happens in home building and not apartment or unit building, you kind of get tarred with the same brush. So we do get a lot of questions as to the history of the people that are developing. So having previous, and obviously you can't deter people from doing their first ones, but having previous photos, history, developments, I guess social proof that that these people know what they're doing and have built really successful projects before is really important. We're forever sending people around on tours of previous projects for developers so they can see what else has been built.
What mistakes do you commonly see developers making, either with marketing their projects off the plan or sort of selling their projects?
As far as marketing, the biggest, by far and above the biggest issue we see is lack of differentiation. Building the same as everyone else. And it's much like the real estate industry. If you're doing the same thing as everyone else, then it's very, very easy for it just to fall by the wayside. And marketing's the same. If you're using the same aspects in your promotional material, the same style of artist impressions, the same style of floor plans, all of that stuff it just goes to allow that to be become unnoticeable. So really standing out in off the plan sales is really important. So from a marketing point of view, choose an aspect that no one's ever chosen before. Have kids playing in a park, stuff like that works really, really well. So when people see it, it's memorable. When people see it, it stands out from what is standard.
With your experience working with developers, what are the kind of things that they don't do or things that you find frustrating with dealing with them?
Look, I think the big one that I find really frustrating is not being able to get onto people. When you have answers and you've got buyers on the line and you can't get answers back. I had a memorable situation a couple of years back where we were selling an off-the-plan project in Croydon, and the guy that was building it would often take 2 or 3 days to answer questions, and it killed sales. There's no doubt about it, it killed sales. So that is by far and above the most frustrating thing. Not having a complete list of inclusions, it amazes me. There have been times when we've had to really push for that. Like, that's really important. People want to know what they're buying. That's clear and obvious. You can't sell a product if people don't have a really clear understanding what they're getting for their money. So that's been something that has been frustration. Although we've addressed that with our own marketing over the last couple of years. We just don't take on developments if they don't have the information that we need. There was one just recently in Croydon North that's ended up with an outer area agent. It was 6 units. It was quite a good development, but we just didn't take it on. We decided to leave that to someone else because there was going to be really, really basic, almost sketch-drawn artist impressions. There was no list of inclusions. There was none of the material that we needed. So we just didn't feel that we were going to be in the best position to do the right thing by them.
So Dave, what's your top tip for developers out there?
I think the key points for people to look at when they're looking at developing is look at your market, really, really understand what's for sale, really understand how your product will compare with what else is available, and work really hard to make it stand out. Look at something that's different, look at something that is going to be somewhat unique in your marketplace, and you'll have a better chance of getting quicker sales, better sales, and clearly from a developer's point of view, the quicker you can finalise all your contracts and satisfy all your sales, and the better everyone is.
So how do you do that? How do you get a better understanding, or a real genuine understanding of the market and what's popular or what would be popular?
Look, there really is no substitute for just doing research on realestate.com. With the amount of information that's available online, you can have a look at everything that's available. If you're seeing everything that's 3 bedrooms, 2-story, 18 squares, and they all look very similar, they've all got a very similar outlook, they've all got a very similar offering, then go different. If everything is apartments in your market, then just don't build apartments. Build something that's bigger, more house-like. If everything's bigger and more house-like, then go a different route. Just create something, a niche within your marketplace. And every market's going to be different, but there's no point just doing what everyone else does, because all you're doing is just adding to an ever-increasing stock that doesn't give you any point of differentiation. So at the end of the day, understand what's being built, understand that most properties will find a buyer. Like, it's not a matter of saying, well, this is a 3-bedroom area, everything has to be 3-bedroom, 2-story. It's not the case, and it's been proven not to be the case. You know, you've got to find, it doesn't matter whether it's an apartment, doesn't matter whether it's a small downsize, a 2-bedroom single level unit, or a large 3-bedroom. There's a market for everything, there's a buyer for everything. And every type of property will find the right buyer, provided it's priced appropriately. So it's a matter of saying, well, there's a shortage of this type of stock. Everyone seems to be building 3-bedroom, 18-square units, and there's a lot of them on the marketplace. So in order to maximise my returns, in order to maximise my ability to get the property sold quickly, well, I'm not going to build that. You know, I'm going to build something that caters more to, you know, a first home buyer, or a downsizer, or an investment buyer, or something like that. You know, if you've got something that's nice and close to a lot of shops and station, well, you know, they're prime stuff for investment buyers. If there's not a lot being built that are, you know, smaller, good quality investment type product, then build those. But, you know,
if you've got product that's selling, so your 3-bedroom, double-story, 18-square property, isn't that an indicator of that's what the market's asking for, and you're safe in delivering that?
Yeah, look, sometimes safe is not always what it seems to be. You know, and at the end of the day, sales, I always come back to sales in its very, very basic form, is a supply and demand issue. You know, there's a reason why stuff that is a little bit rarer always gets a premium price, because they're harder to find. So you just don't want to add to an ever-increasing stock. If they're all selling and there's not a lot on the market, then yeah, absolutely. Like, you're not pitting yourself or pitting your product against a multitude of other similar type of properties. But if you have a look at something like realestate.com or Domain, and there's 14 or 15 3-bedrooms on the market and they're all sitting there, well, that's a clear indication there's a bit of an oversupply in that type of market. So you aim for something that is probably going to be a little bit more sought after and hard to find. So it's a matter of just picking your niche, and picking a niche in a marketplace. And, you know, I think real estate marketing in general, you know, has been very much a scattergun and approach for too many years. But one of the most effective tools that you can have in any marketing across all industries is really zeroing in and niche marketing your stuff. So if you've got something that is going to particularly suit a certain demographic or a certain type of buyer, and there's not a lot out there that's servicing that marketplace, then you'd be mad not to tap into that.
Now tell me, what's the toughest business decision you've ever had to make?
Leaving a franchise actually was one of the toughest, just absolutely without a doubt the toughest business decision I ever made. We didn't leave because we weren't making money. In fact, we were making just ridiculous amounts of money running 2 large offices, but we took a risk, we took a chance. We decided that the real estate industry was going to change rapidly, and we're starting to see that really happen now. And we decided, I remember clearly having a huge discussion with my wife at the time, and we decided that, you know, we had all the nice toys, but money wasn't the be all and end all. It was better. We were better off running something that was more aligned with our values and more aligned with, you know, wanting to be able to sleep soundly at night. You know, I talk about how real estate agents spend a lot of people's money for self-promotion. Well, we were absolute kings of that. We did that for years. It was through our training through franchises, but we spent, I shudder to think the amount of other people's money we spent promoting ourselves. It was vast amounts of money. You know, to give you an example, we'd often run $25,000 a month local paper accounts. You know, that's not our $25,000 a month. You know, it wasn't our money that we were spending. It was other people's money. You know, we'd give each other high fives when we ran 5 or 6 pages in the local paper, and it's $1,600 a page. You know, it was a hideous amount of money. But when you're earning a very big income, it's quite hard to walk away from it. But I think at the end of the day, life is not about money, it's about experiences. And we've certainly learnt more in the last 3 years or 5 years now since we sold out of the franchise than I have in the previous 15 years in real estate. So it was a tough decision. It was the hardest decision we've ever had in business, but it's been well worth it, and we're very glad we did it.
So if you could go back in time and talk to a younger David, when would it be, and what advice would you give him?
Yeah, look, I wouldn't go back, and I wouldn't give myself any advice. I think we got to where we are, and I think we're at the point we're at today, all because of the experiences that we've had. Everything has a place in life that gets you to where you need to be. And we've just come off the back, as I said, of winning a state award, being a national finalist for our products and our software. But all of that's been born of the experiences that we had. It was necessary for us to be part of a large franchise. It was necessary for us to get to a point where it was so big and it was so profitable. We had to look at it and say, well, what's the point of this? All of that was necessary. It was necessary for us to have the experience of spending other people's money and then getting to the point and saying, well, I don't think this is right. You have to have experienced it to know that it's wrong, unfortunately. You have to have been in other people's shoes before you can make a value judgment on that. So I wouldn't go back in time, and I wouldn't give myself any advice, because I wouldn't change anything that's happened. And if I gave my earlier self any advice, I may disrupt the linear events that happened from that point onward. And
that's the story from Back to the Future, isn't it?
It is. Don't mess with the space-time continuum.
Into himself.
That's right. But everything's happened, and look, I'm not a big one for fate or anything like that, but everything's happened. All of the experiences that we've had in business over the years have led us to where we are today. And as I say, we've just come off the back of some fairly major awards. We're getting a lot of interest in our software now. We've just released it to New Zealand. We're just finalising today and tomorrow the pages for a large franchise, funnily enough, but a large franchise in New Zealand to take it up. But all of that was born from the experiences that we've had.
Well, Dave, if people want to get in touch with you, where can they find you, or how can they find out more about you?
Our website is marketshareproperty.com.au. All of our contact details are on there. We have an office in Exeter Road in Croydon North. They can always drop in and see us. We have a lot of information these days on our website, a lot of blog posts that sort of talk about where we came from and why we're at where we're at. And all of our staff and profiles are on there, but feel free to contact us at any time. We're happy just to have a chat.
Well, David, thanks very much for being on the Property Developer Podcast. I'm very grateful to you for your time and for your insights.
No problem. My pleasure, Justin.
See you later.
Thanks. See ya.
Okay, there you go. Another great conversation about selling your development project. I hope you picked up some ideas and inspiration for marketing your stock. Having a good selling agent on your team is really important to the overall success of the project. Here's 3 things that I took away from our conversation. 1. Try to stand out from the crowd. In a crowded marketplace, you need to stand out from the competition, and there are many, many ways to do this. Get great renders produced to start with. I mentioned Upwork.com as a place you can look to find a good renderer, or another site is EasyRender.com. Thanks to listener Graham Fan for putting me onto that site. It doesn't have to cost a fortune to get good renders done these days. You should also work on emotive copy to emotionally engage your prospective buyers. Again, a site like Upwork.com can help find copywriters if you don't feel this is your strong point, or your agents either. And of course, the overall design of your project can help you stand out, so find the best designers you can afford and deliver something of quality that people will desire to live in or buy. 2. Develop videos to promote your project. As David and I discussed, video is essential these days if you want to reach more potential buyers, and it's not that hard to create simple yet effective videos. Whether that be animating still images with some music, or getting a production company to create a killer video, and everything in between. I think videos with a developer explaining why they are doing the project is good, or a video with a designer and agent promoting the benefits of the project are really beneficial, and they only need to be short and sharp, from 1 to 2 minutes long. You can then use these videos on your online listing, or through your website, or other sites like Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. The options are many, and it's all about helping your project to stand out and get noticed. 3. Research and understand what your market wants. This was David's top tip. Make sure you understand what your intended buyer is wanting and deliver up that product. You should be able to get some good market feedback from local agents about what buyers are looking for, and also if the market is flooded with a particular type of property. Though keep in mind the time it takes to get your project to market, by which time the market might have shifted and buyers wanting something different. Agents will also tell you products that they think are easy to sell, which may not necessarily be something that you want to produce. Alright, we are nearly at the end of another show. Don't forget to check out my latest project video. You can view it in the show notes for episode 24 over at propertydeveloperpodcast.com. And you can check out my Instagram feed at Property Developer Podcast for all my latest videos and property developer porn pics. And finally, you can find all the past episodes of the show over at www.propertydeveloperpodcast.com. Okay, until next time, may all your project marketing stand out from the crowd.
You've been listening to the Property Developer Podcast. Tune in next time for more tips, ideas, and inspiration to take your developing to the next level. For more developing love, make sure to visit propertydeveloperpodcast.com.